Welcome to a very special edition of JTV. We're here at Nottingham University and we're doing an event in conjunction with JRoots and the Nottingham Jewish Society. There is a well-known Jewish saying, Ein chacham kabal nisayon, which means there is no wisdom that is compared to the wisdom of someone who has been through adversity. And there's no doubt that Leslie Kleinman is such a person. We called this event tonight Growing Through Suffering because we wanted to do a slightly different approach to Holocaust education, which is to focus on how a person can enter the gates of hell and manage to continue every month, every week, every day, every hour. And not only that, but be able to come out and to continue throughout the rest of his life, having dealt with all this trauma. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to learn lessons of wisdom from a man who has seen it all. And we're hopefully going to come away from this being able to take some of that wisdom into our lives. So without further ado, it gives me a great amount of honor and pleasure to welcome Mr. Leslie Kleinman. Okay, so Leslie, what we want to do first is to give people a quick rundown, a quick introduction to your experiences during the war. So we have a short clip that we want to show everyone, and then we'll go into a discussion after that.
Thank you very much.
Here we go.
In 1944, Leslie Kleinman's father was torn away from his family by the Nazis. A few weeks later, Leslie was taken to Auschwitz-Birkenau with his mother, 3 brothers, and 4 sisters. They were taken by cattle car, and the conditions were so dire that his mother was forced to sell her wedding ring for bread. Upon arriving, they were separated from each other. He would never see them again. While in Auschwitz, Leslie recalls at one time witnessing a Dutch prisoner being shot and killed for straightening his back while they were working the railway line. On another occasion, a woman arriving at the camp with her baby was told she can't keep it. The baby was taken from her, thrown into the air, and shot before the mother too was executed. At the end of the war, when the camps were being destroyed, Leslie along with others were taken on a 300-mile death march, during which he watched many dozens of people die. He saw heaps of dead corpses with his own eyes. After the war ended, Mr. Kleinman was informed that despite his sister having survived, she died 2 days after liberation. Of his entire family, he was the only survivor. Despite all the horrors he witnessed and all he was forced to endure, Leslie found the strength to forgive and to love all people continuously throughout his life.
So, Leslie, you are in the ghetto, then you're on a train journey, you get to Auschwitz, you're separated from your family, you experience incredible loneliness, you have to deal with the extreme cold when the winter comes, you have the hunger to deal with every day, you're seeing people crying around you. What's going through your head at that moment when you get off the train?
Well, first of all, when I got off the train, I actually came with my mother, my brothers, and we came the whole family down. And they told us, we're going to go and have a shower. It was such a terrible journey. We had 110 people in a wagon and gave us only 1 bucket, you know. So that bucket was only enough for 1 hour, never mind about a week nearly. And everybody was crying all the time. I could see my mom crying all the time. And eventually we did arrive in Auschwitz. I remember a man saying, they promised us we're going to Germany. We're never supposed to go to Auschwitz. That's what they told us when we left.
And did you know where you were?
I mean, no, one man actually shouted out, we're not going to Germany, this train goes east, he said. But I didn't know what east was. Anyway, so we ended up in Auschwitz-Birkenau. When we ended up in Birkenau, I was still with my family. And all I could see is like a cloud of people, it was packed with people. And they told us, we're going to go having a shower. Everybody was happy, you know, we smelled bad and dirty. And we're so happy that we're going to have a shower. What they didn't realize, there was no water in the building. There was actually shower heads, but no water. So I went with my little brother, and then this Jewish man, a Polish Jew, I think, pulled me out from the line And he asked me how old I was. And I said, well, I was 14. And he said, you know what, you look 17. Because I came from a farming land, so 17. He says, you're 17 now. He didn't say anything else. So by the time I got back to the queue, my mother was gone, my family was gone, and I still didn't believe. I thought, well, I'll go later, So I marched forward and I happened to see Dr. Mengele. And told me to go right to him. And he asked me how old I was. I told him I was 17. He needed workers. So he said yes. So they gave me a number. As you know, my number in Hebrew means love. They didn't know that. Because we have letters, we don't have numbers.
Can you show us?
Yes. And there's the number.
And will you just explain to the audience what you meant by that, about the numbers adding up?
We don't have actually numbers. It's the Romans who brought in numerals, but we still keep the old-fashioned way. So the letters we keep, like an A, it would be a 1, a B would be 2, sort of like.
In Hebrew?
In Hebrew, yes. And what happens is, you see, when you go to a cemetery, for instance, there's no numbers, there's letters. But that letters, they know what year they passed away. So, but in letters, this number, actually, it corresponds with love. So the Nazis didn't know what they gave me. They gave me love with my number.
So the numerical value of the Hebrew word for love, ahava, is the number that's added up in your arm. So we'll speak about that later, about your response to this. But I'm asking you specifically, what's going through your head when you get off there and you see what's going on? At what point did you know I'm in an extermination camp? When did you realise that?
I didn't know at all, because next day...
Throughout the whole time?
No, beginning.
At the beginning, okay.
Yeah,
so when did you know?
I knew the first morning I wanted to go and find my family, because they told us that we're going to go in a barrack, everybody's going to live nicely. So I'm looking at it around, I couldn't find them anywhere. So I saw a man walking along, and I said to him, I came yesterday with my family, do you know where they are? And he says, what are you talking about? He says, can't you see the chimneys? Chimneys? What about the chimneys? He said, that's where they went. Within a few hours, he said, they were all gone. And that's when the first time I found out, that all of a sudden became, by the way, 64 to 66 people. It was uncles, cousins, and so on. We were actually 4 sisters and 3 brothers. And I lost most of them, so I didn't realize it at the time until I saw the gas chambers.
So once you realize that you've lost most of your family, that you are probably facing certain death, how do you continue at that point? How do you keep going? What's going through your head? How are you able to keep going?
Well, because, you see, I was brought up very religious with my father, so I was brought up to believe in God, So I decided I got nobody. I tried a few people, and nobody was interested to be a friend with me. So I said to God, with tears, I said to him, God, I haven't got any friends and I haven't got any families. Can you please be my friend? I asked God to be my friend. And I found all the time I was in there, I found like it's guiding me everywhere.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, the first thing that happened was, as I was there, I got a big boil on my neck. It was the size of an egg. It was the size of an egg. And, it was so painful, I didn't know what to do. So I laid down for pains, I just laid on the floor. This guard come up and put his big boots on it. And of course the parts ran out. But we had no bandages, no things. And I realized that God was with me, and I didn't have nothing. I didn't have any anesthetics, nothing for that to help me for pain. But he healed up within a few months. I've still got a scar.
Oh, really? To me, it seems like I'm just astounded that you're able to say that you found that you could take solace, you could take comfort in God when you're living in hell itself. How could there be any sense of consolation whatsoever? How can there be any sense of a positive thought running through your head?
Well, you see, because my father, as a child, taught me everything that happens in life is from God. Even when you prick your little finger.
So why didn't you hate God?
It's from God. But I don't hate God because I love God. You see, but even a little finger. But there's one thing is not from God. It's believing in God. That's what he taught me. So I don't know why this happened. I'm not that, what's the name? All I know is I had 4 miracles in the camps. So God helped me every time. So it's a long story to say all of it, but it was there, you know. And if you believe in something, you've got hope. And if you haven't got any hope, you've got nothing.
And did you feel that you were resigned to the situation, or did you want to fight to stay alive? Did you feel I'm in God's hands, or I've got to fight?
I was fighting, you know, I wanted to be alive. And the reason I wanted to be alive, when I found out all my family was gone, I'm the only one left to keep my family alive. You know, it's, I thought they would die in vain. There was nobody there. And I was very strong to keep myself, you know, whatever they done, I've been there. I've worked in terrible conditions, as you know, but managed to get through every time.
Now, we're going to take questions from the audience, so if anyone at any moment has a particular question that they want to ask, please just raise your hands and we're happy to go to you throughout, and I'll keep trying to look this way so I can see if anyone has any particular questions, but I guess I'll keep going for the meantime.
Okay.
After you leave Auschwitz and you're on the death march, which was done effectively to kill off the remaining the remnants.
There were 50,000 people left in Auschwitz. But by in 45 January, they told us that they got rid of the crematoriums, they got rid of everything else because the Russians were coming up. They were that scared of the Russians. So what we're going to do with 50,000 people? So they decided to send them on a death march. Don't give them any food, just let them go. They die in there.
So you see, when you're going on the death march, you said that you saw people dying constantly, dropping dead the whole time whilst
the
you were
whole
walking.
time I was marching,
So
every few minutes.
Did you become desensitized almost to seeing people dying? Or did it constantly shock you every time you saw it happening?
You know what? You can even get used to trouble. The Jewish, we call it tzuras. You know, we can really get used to that as well. And I don't know, it just came. I mean, I was doing, you know, as a child. It was when I was 13, I was helping my father actually to wash bodies already then, wow, which is a great honor for us. So I'm used to it. There was one case actually, I couldn't march anymore, you know, and I prayed to God. And I said to him, I can't march anymore, you know, can you please help? And before I knew it, and when we stopped, somehow, I don't know where they came from, the 2 brothers, I got a picture of them, from my village, who studied by my father. The 2 of them came up in with me. So what we done is, and they filmed it in Germany actually, how was it when you walked in the death march? But I was in the middle and I was half dead, I couldn't move, and I was holding my arms like this on the 2 boys. And then I managed to get to the next place. And so I don't know where they came from, but I know they came from my village. They were my friends from home. So I thought, well, at least I got somebody left from my village.
You seem to be someone that, you know, you pray, even though you're in dire circumstances, you're ready to find the smallest blessings and ready to find the smallest sense of positivity. Most people, I don't think, I mean, you can ask yourselves this, but I don't think I would be able to even notice those small blessings. And you're so convinced of that. Do you think that was something that you just have within you? Do you think every person can attain such an attitude?
Well, it depends on, we are all different. God makes us all different ways. If we say on Passover, for instance, that God made 4 different children. We're not all the same, you know. So it's. They've asked me, many people have asked me, why did God look away? Why did He kill all? Why didn't He help? I said to him, God didn't kill anybody. It's the man who killed it, you know. He didn't kill anyone. I never saw God killing people. So I looked at it a different way. We all look at things a different way.
And you seem like to have a very strong conviction, the fact that everything happens for a reason somehow, that there is some kind of master plan. That seems to be a
kind of master plan. The one thing I was thinking, lately, because I didn't get on with my father very well, he was very strict. But the last time I saw him, he gave me a priest blessing.
Priestly blessing.
Priestly blessing.
Right.
And I thought to myself, why is I'm the only one who got a blessing? Why not my brother? It was only a year difference. And I'm thinking, I tell you why, that's my things. My father thought that I'm strong enough to live through. My brother was very weak. He could have never lived through it. Many times I was crying, I was hoping, why didn't I help my brother to come out with me, to come in? But then I thought, he was too weak. No way could have managed what I went through, starvation. They gave us 300 calories a day. That's it. That was it. And you can imagine, they want to know how many calories at least we can give a man before, and they can work all day long. So every time they gave us less and less till they got to 300.
How often do you think about your family? How often do you think about?
I think about my mother every time. In fact, a few months ago, because maybe my mother, I got on very well. And every time I think of her, I got tears in my eyes, And my mother was such a wonderful person, a loving person. She had 8 children. And you know what? We didn't have a carpet, we didn't have a floor, but we have love in our house. And I was brought up with love from my family. And my mother done everything for those children. That was her life. But we were so poor, we had nothing else. But, so a few months ago, actually, I was dreaming. I saw her in a guest chamber, my mother. It was so real. I'll tell you, if it was, because obviously I was never in a guest chamber, I wouldn't be here. But I saw her in a guest chamber, and she was holding her children like this, little children with her. And she still said a blessing for Hashem, for God. Shema Yisrael, she was saying. And I woke up crying. My wife said, what are you crying for? I said, it was so real, I thought she was there. So, her name was Rachel, which means Rachel, in English. She was the mother, actually, of the Jewish people.
Now, I only learned this yesterday, but I was told that you only started speaking about your experiences about a decade ago.
That's correct.
Now, has speaking about your experiences, has it provided you, has it made you more, has it given you stress or comfort, ultimately? What is it, and why, what was it like sort of keeping it all closed up for so many years?
For 60 years, I never spoke about it. And the first time I started speaking with Steven Spielberg, we wanted to have I lived in Canada at the time. And when I came to England, my first wife, she died of leukemia. And the last thing she said to me was, Leslie, you should go back to your roots. That's where you belong. So she got my daughter, I've got one daughter and one son. She got my daughter, make sure that their dad goes near the synagogue. Now I find, I changed because I find there's so much, I became spiritual, and I find there's so much love there is in some of the people.
But what was it that stopped you from telling anyone about what happened? Was it just too painful to go there in your mind? No,
at that time, I didn't want to know about it. I wanted to live now. I wanted, when I was younger, I was dancing, go to the Lyceum Strand, and every night when somebody else was dancing, ballroom dancing, of course. And I met so many people there. But I wanted to live, I've been through the terrible things. Yeah, I want to live on my own, the way I want to live.
And going back to these experiences now, for the last decade, do you feel, what's that been like? What's it been like to have this?
Well, I feel actually that God saved me, that's why I believe, saved me to be able to go to students particularly. There's a lot of anti-Semitism coming again. When I came to England, I thought, at long last, there's no hate. We never hated anybody. We were brought up, everyone to me is equal. It doesn't matter whether they're Africans or whatever color, it doesn't matter to me at all. I find every person I care for. And I tried to pass this through to them. This world would be a much better world, if this would happen. Because hate causes only hate.
Yeah.
Because the school children once asked me, you've had 4 days from the Americans. You could kill any Nazi. Why didn't you kill a Nazi? I said to them, I couldn't do it because I'm not a judge and I'm not a murderer. And if I murder him, I'm just the same as he is. I'm no different to him.
So you were given an opportunity to
So I
kill a
had
Nazi.
4 days. I had kill any Nazi I want. First of all, they changed their civilian, they changed their mustache or whatever they were. Which I would have never recognized them properly, so I never killed one. And besides, they don't bring my family back. So why am I going to kill them for?
Many people would say for revenge.
Revenge,
People
yeah.
would say,
I don't believe in revenge. Because if you're going for revenge, I'm going to kill you, you're going to kill me next,
What about
where do you stop from
what
killing?
about for justice?
For justice, you have to be a judge in jury, really, to know exactly.
Haven't you seen enough?
Well, no, I know, but they still have to be, listen, we got to be realistic. We have to be, I know in the past, and what I've learned in the past, and I've seen, people say that 6 million Jews passed away, and I'm saying, there was also 5 million non-Jews, who were there. So anybody who was against Hitler, he was there.
Yeah.
And there was a priest alone. I know there was 119 priests in the Auschwitz-Birkenau. They were murdered because they didn't agree with. So I love all of them. I don't have any. It was, and I mentioned all of them who were there.
So do we have any questions at the moment from the audience? Anyone that wants to ask something specific to Leslie? Yeah, we've got someone over there at the back.
Did you ever see yourself leaving? Did you know that someone was coming to try to free the camp? Did you know that the English and the Americans were looking for you, or did you feel that you were totally forgotten?
I always thought that I was going to be liberated, and I was very, very lucky, actually. I was liberated by the Americans after that part, near Dachau. They were taking me there. And it happened to be a Jewish tank, the first one.
Wow.
And when he saw me, I was on my own. Everybody disappeared except me. I was in a hole, hiding myself, frightened. I didn't know what's going on. And he comes up to me and says to me, "Are you Jewish?" I said, "Yes." And I hesitated a bit. And then he says, "Shalom, I'm also a Jew." I said, "A Jew, a Nazi?" Because I didn't know the difference in the club. "I'm not a Nazi." He says, I'm from New York, Brooklyn." And he picked me up and we both cried together. I never thought, I hoped I was getting liberated, but I never really thought I was going to be liberated.
Did you have any insider information that the Allied forces were making their way? Were you told this? Did you have any information beforehand?
We did have some, it wasn't far away, yes. We did have some, I thought it was just talk.
You thought it was just
I said, when I see it, I believe it. I was only 20 kilograms. But the Americans weighed me when I was liberated.
Wow.
Which is my 3 3/4 of stone. That's it. And there was only bones. So the Americans, gave me a lot of things.
What did they feed you with?
They fed me actually with semolina and light foods, and they gave me sugar and blood and sugar water and things like that. They were very good, actually. And then they sent me to a convent. And there I was for 2 months.
At this point, what's going through your head? Were you able, the moment you were liberated, were you able to reflect now more fully on what had happened to you, on your losing your family? Did you only come to terms with it at that point? Or were you even thinking about these things, allowing yourself to think about these things every day throughout?
Now, actually, I was thinking mostly, don't worry, not so bad. You've got a sister left. And I thought, well, at least I got a sister. She was older than me. And so I said, I must go home and find her. And when I got as far as, I got a lift from the Americans, and when I got as far as Prague, they said, "We can't take you any further, it's communist there." I saw a cousin of my father's and asked her, "Where was my sister?" And she said, "Well, she died 2 days after the war, and she was in the Bergen-Belsen." I was not in Bergen-Belsen, nowhere near it, but she was in Bergen-Belsen. And I said, "What did she die of?" She was very healthy. And she said, "We didn't give us any food." And a lot of people died of starvation, and they died of... so they got typhoid, she got, and they had no medication for her. And right away goes in my mind, I was crying, like a little baby sobbing away there. I couldn't believe this could happen. You know what? She was such a wonderful person. I'm thinking of, they pulled in my mind, I could see 2 men lifted up her legs and 2 men lifted up their arms and thrown it up like a mountain of dead bodies, And I'm thinking to myself, my father was a rabbi. He said blessings. Who's going to say the blessings for her? Who's going to say something, some sort of... So now I'm seeing people coming into Auschwitz, youngsters, 14, 15 years old. And I tell them how proud of them, because you come up here, there's 1 million souls that died in Auschwitz. Not all Jews, but it doesn't matter, 1 million souls died here. And I say to them, you know what, you coming up here, it's a great thing. They were shivering like this, and they're still coming. Because normally, we go once in a year and visit I haven't got nowhere to go to. So the only place I can go and say blessings will be Auschwitz.
Yeah.
Where am I going to go? I have no cemeteries in England. So that's where I go. I say my blessings to them, so the soul should be able to rest in peace.
You faced unimaginable fear and suffering. Obviously, it's incomparable to anything, people in this stage, well, at least I assume in this room, are going through. But what advice would you give to people who are going through moments of challenge or pain or loneliness? What advice would you give to people in this room?
Well, first of all, you're not going to sit at home and sit in this and then worrying about things. You're not going to sit there, do something, get yourself a hobby. Then it takes your mind away. Because, I know lots of people, they wouldn't get up from their chair. And the next thing I know is, they passed away. And my mother-in-law, for instance, from the other side, she was a big woman, and she never walked at all. I told her, you stand up and then go have a walk. She wouldn't. What happened? I was right, she needed a wheelchair. So this is one thing. The second thing is you should find yourself a hobby, some sort of a hobby. I don't remember what. And I say my hobby is actually, believe it or not, is the computer. I could never finish with it. You know what I mean? They changed over to Outlook, and I have difficulties with that one. I was better off with a Hotmail. But anyway.
But what about up here in your head? When someone's going through these moments of challenge, what kind of things do you tell yourself? Do you think it's best to ignore negative thoughts? Or do you think it's better to address them and face them head on?
Well, okay. We have in our things, I was taught from home, we have 2 things in our body, a good side and a bad side, the evil side, for instance. And the evil side tells me, for instance, why do you want to go to the synagogue in the morning? What do you want to get up 6 o'clock for? You must be crazy. My wife tells me that as well, by the way. but so I say to him, you know what? Why don't you stay here and you go to sleep and I'm going to the synagogue, so I don't stand any nonsense from him what he's telling me. You got 2 things, and you do what you think is right, and you'd always be, well, if you're going to help people if they need help, I'm always there. If somebody needs help, if somebody's sick, I'm the first one to be there to visit them. But that's what I learned from my father.
I recently heard a rabbi say that, in films, you have a soundtrack.
Yeah.
And when you're going through the difficult moments, there's a soundtrack there, and this is a moment of challenge, but it's going to change, it's going to get better. We sometimes don't hear the soundtrack in our lives, especially during the moments of challenge. But it's important to remember that there is a soundtrack. I'm going to move on to part 2, unless there's any particular questions on Leslie's actual experiences during the war, or the psychological element of it. Does anyone have any final questions on that part? Yeah, we've got a question over here.
So I'm intrigued to know, how much you thought about it after, in the years after. Did you speak to other survivors? Were you in touch with high-ranking Nazi officials being found and killed, such as Eichmann or something, or were you did you completely take yourself away from it, or were you still thinking about it? Yeah.
Do you hear? No. So she's asking...
I'm having a new hearing aid done.
Okay.
It's expensive.
I wish you much success with it.
Yeah. So I should be all right.
Okay, so the question was, did you speak to survivors afterwards? Did you find out about searches for Nazis, including the Eichmann trial? Were you involved in this at all, or did you just shut it all out of your life?
No, I saw the Eichmann trial, and I was actually the boys, they called them the boys. I was a member there until I met my first wife. And because she was not Jewish faith, they weren't interested in me. So I said, if you don't want my wife, you don't want me either. It didn't bother me.
Right.
Entitled to their beliefs. Mm-hmm. But I still knew, because she was standing there, always, watching the news as well, about Israel particularly. And she was more Israeli than I was, and she joined the synagogue as well. Mm-hmm. So she was a wonderful person, really.
So I think we're going to speak about your experiences after the war now. I want to invite up Rabbi Benji Gordon from JRoots, who's known you for quite a while, I believe, has been on many trips with you. So he's going to join us for this part of the conversation. But before we get there, and this is focusing now on your Jewish journey up until today, and your life afterwards, because there's a really interesting story to tell post the war.